Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Red Path. We are talking about the new World Eaters Codex today. Specifically, we are here to talk about the brand new detachments. And in order to do that, we are going to use the tried and tested, ever popular tier list method. I am joined today by my wonderful co hosts, Jamie and Brian. Gentlemen, how are you doing today?
I am pretty good. Thank you, Dara. Pretty good. Brian,
I'm
how
doing
are
good.
you?
I'm doing good.
No one cares.
So I'm dying a little bit on the inside because spring decided to start over here, so all the pollen's up in the air. So
Yeah.
other than that, I'm fine, but my face wants to melt off.
Wonderful.
And you,
So,
Dara? Dara, are
yeah,
you
man, I'm
okay?
good. I'm still riding the high. Lots of new cool stuff to be talking about and chatting about, as everyone in the entire World Leaders community is doing over the last however long that people have had the rules in front of them. So today, yeah, we're going to be focusing specifically on the five new detachments. We're also going to be touching on vessels. We're going to be essentially talking about their playability, their competitive viability, and ranking them into at least how we see it. And then we're going to touch on kind of like how these detachments lean into different army archetypes, different play styles, ease of use, etc., etc. So we've got a fair bit to go through today. And it is worth pointing out that if you folks are interested in a deeper dive into specific detachments, that in the coming days we will be putting out videos where each of those videos actually specifically focuses on a single detachment. We've all taken a couple of them each, and we're all very excited to present those as well. I think those are one of the more interesting things that we've got coming up. But today, we're going to give a general overview, as we've kind of been doing over the last little while, just having a general overview of the entire codex. And yeah, I think without further ado, Brian's going to bring up a little tier list that we've got here.
Hey
And
everyone.
if you've been enjoying the Red Path and want to support the channel, then check out our Patreon. Whether you're into competitive play or just love hobbying your berserkers, there's something in there for you. By signing up to either the Berserker Hobby or Berserker Competitive tier, you'll get access to one of two private channels in the Discord, which focuses on painting and modeling or competitive play. You'll be able to talk shop, jam list ideas, paint jobs, and all that good stuff in there. And if you just can't decide between the two, then grab the 8 pound tier, which gives you access to both. The links are in the description below. Cheers for watching, folks, and keep walking the red path. And we're going to dive into it.
Yeah, so
So,
here it is.
so here we've got it. A little bit
With
of custom imagery, as we don't exactly have clear imagery for the detachments. So the Berserker represents Berserker warbands. We've got the Demon Prince to represent vessels. We've got the 8 bands to represent the possessed slaughter bands. We've got the Jackals for the Cult of Blood, the Rhino for Gore-Tread, and the Bloodthirster for Khorne Demonkin. Brian, you want to talk us through these tiers that we've got here and what they kind of represent?
Yeah, these are probably as intellectual and accurate as you can get as far as a competitive analysis of the game. Um, Really, this is just like genius naming. We couldn't think of anything better. This just represents our personality as a channel and where we stand professionally. So, first of all, we have competitive creme, which is like the creme de la creme. This is what I expect to be winning GTs the most. Next, we have our
Hold on,
mid-tables.
hold on, hold on.
Oh, okay, backing up.
Yeah, sorry. So I think you'd have to pronounce that creamy or creme because it doesn't have the accent. So if you could start again and pronounce it correctly, please.
I think like some
Sorry,
creamy
the
competitive.
competitive creamy. Then we have the mid-table spice. This is your 3-2-4-1 catch somebody off guard. You really want to wow somebody with something they've not seen before. That's your that can still win a GT. It's not going to be common, but still looking at some spicy builds here. That's going to be where a lot of the flavor is going to be coming out of the Codex. Then we have our too cute, which is detachments that I think are trying a little too hard to pull off a gimmick. Um, Once in a blue moon, we expect them to be winning an event. Probably can. Most of the time, it's probably sitting around 3-2-2-3 or stat checking teams is what we're looking at there. And then get some help. Obviously, that just means that you should join our Patreon and get some help because we'll tell you what detachments are better than the one that you're playing currently.
Excellent. All clear and distinct, I think. And yeah, basically, obviously, these are our own kind of opinions, but it's worth mentioning that we all do have fairly different opinions on what's interesting to us and what we like and what we think is viable. So we'll go into them in depth as we work through them. But first on the list we have Berserker Warband. Jamie, why don't you kick us off with your thoughts on where this detachment is kind of going to be coming in?
Um, well, as the most accomplished competitive World Eaters player in the history of humanity, it absolutely has to go and get some help. It's there is no redeemable quality. In fact, could we just create another rank below it? No. So Berserker Warband, as we know, we're not going to go into super depth here, everyone, but just broad strokes, vaguely, mostly similar. It's the most similar playstyle we have to Index World Eaters 10th edition so far. Um, it and Vessels, we'll see how they shake out after the mix, but it's strong. It's very strong. The list archetypes are gonna change, surely, with Angron, you know.
Yeah.
It does have a lot going for it though. It really it pushes our berserkers, well, it pushes everything. Ups and downs, ups and downs. Personally, and I know like we're gonna disagree on this. I put it in mid-table spice. Um, but that's based on what I prefer elsewhere. But I think it's very strong. I don't necessarily believe it's the strongest detachment though. But I'd start throw it in mid-table so you two can yell at me and tell me how much of a dumbass I
Will
Right?
do, Jamie.
Oh,
I'll
I
just
Um,
turn it over to Brian.
know.
yeah, so I believe was it three strats difference from the current Berserker Warband and
Yeah.
which the current Berserker Warband has an index has five strats because I don't even consider the sixth one to be
Yeah,
possible.
right.
Dara tried it once and it was mediocre at best. We're talking about Gory Massacre.
Yeah, Gory Mass.
Um,
Which has snuck its way into the eight-band detachment, much to my happiness.
so when I'm looking at this detachment in the book as is written and comparing it to what we had before and looking at a lot of the problems that war leaders had um, in our index, and that was dealing with Armor of Contempt. That was complaining that your Mauler Fiend was only AP2. That was all sorts of things. Just weirdly, like World Eaters should be the hardest hitting army in the game, in my opinion, in Melee. It shouldn't even be contested. And I think this detachment actually pushes that story where it should be, where it wasn't. We had the damage, but we didn't have that follow through to actually deliver that damage in the Berserker Warband detachment in the index, right? If somebody puts Deathwing Knights in front of you and says Armor of Contempt, we kind of just stare at them and don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Um, so having the access to the extra AP strat is huge. Having another sixth relevant strat is also huge because all of the strats in Berserker Warband I see myself using throughout an event multiple times. Keeping sticky on death, the Blood Surge 8, um, basically just means you're immune to chip damage. No one's ever going to shoot a bolt pistol at you ever, because you're just going to move 8 inches. Even if you're not ending up in combat, that's enough to just mess with your opponent's game plan. Um, so the +2 strength ch update didn't really mean anything because everything kind of got downshifted in strength. So the +2 strength basically keeps the strength profiles of our army equal. So it helps us not feel the nerfs of berserkers and demon princes going down in strength. But having the access to the +2 strength, +1 attack, yeah, that's solid. That's just how we do our damage. And just the AP on a stick that we can now be doing for free with like a Demon Prince or making the Mauler Fiend not just utter trash, being AP2 Last Cannon Fists or AP2 Berserkers, which we popped off for in Vessels. So I'm excited to see another detachment able to have AP2 Berserkers because fuck Armor of Contempt. I'm tired of that stuff. So I think it is competitive Krem just because it is the broadest stroke, vanilla, this is what we want in World Eaters. This is just it doesn't I feel like it doesn't have a bad matchup scenario for Berserker Warband. And it pushes our MSU and skirmishing to the absolute limit. Having +2 strength, +1 attack, and an extra AP on stuff like Spawn and Goremongers and Jackals means we actually aren't afraid to go out and trade early because we'll know we will win those engagements. So that's my opinion of the detachment.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty well-rounded thought. I would say I probably sit somewhere between Jamie and Brian on this one. Like I do kind of agree with both of you in the sense of like the detachment is very familiar. A lot of people are going to like using it because it's kind of what they know and love. It's wonderful that they have six stratagems worth using now, and I think maybe to slightly disagree with Brian, the +2 strength is quite impactful in certain areas, such as like your average 8 band going up to strength 10 now is very, very interesting. Obviously, your jackals and your goremongers and your spawn benefit hugely from that. With extra attacks and extra strength, as Brian mentioned, they become excellent MSU trade pieces, which is what this detachment wants to be playing. Wants to be playing a lot of MSU efficient trading, which really kind of works with the sort of archetype that the book itself wants to push, which is kind of like good staging, good trading, mid-board control. So having a detachment that really pushes the MSU build and makes that viable is very, very good. I think just because of the bonuses to the attacks and the strength, it does mean you can get away with things like having three 8 band and a slaughter bound attached as like a very, very viable big anti-tank threat. I think we worked out the math that they should, on average, with a little bit of help, kill a big knight, which is
It,
like
yeah,
really good.
that squad kills like 90% of the game.
Yeah, which is
Uh,
fantastic for points trading efficiency. So I think, uh, in my opinion, the detachment does lack tricks and jank, which is kind of probably what Jamie was alluding to earlier. Um, and for that reason, I think it might be stymied a little bit in the sense of like very, very high end players and at the top tables are going to be able to look in this and just say, okay, I know your tricks. Like the biggest trick that this detachment has is the flat eight surge, which is a very, very good trick. And obviously, you do have the push capability with the advancing and charging Zerks, but of course, without being able to guarantee that movement, you could just roll a one and then that would suck. Um, that's probably the negative that I see for this detachment. And it's really the only negative, to be honest. Otherwise, it is just quality. And while I think personally, I wouldn't, from my own perspective, of like, if I was to pick a detachment that I could win a tournament with, I would not pick this one. But I think for the vast majority of people, that is the competitive choice because it's fairly straightforward to use. It's familiar. And it is very, very good quality. So I do think it is like competitive creme. Maybe not for like myself and Jamie, who kind of have like a bit of a more warped perception and like our own kind of weird jank and stuff. But if we are talking about this from a generalist perspective, I would put it kind of at the top level.
Brian gets this one.
I got some spicier takes coming.
Yeah, we're gonna get into some real rage bait as we move on.
Well,
We
Dara,
have
this one, yeah, this one's your baby. You can take this one, Dara.
Vessels is my baby. I guess I'll kick us off. So I think Vessels is super super interesting right now. Obviously, not that Vessels was kind of like solved in the index, but it was close to being solved between myself and Josie with the Dabrosi and Josie 2K. Um, those list archetypes were very, very good and heavily reliant on mass 8 band spam, which was really good, but that's not really what you're going to want to be doing anymore because Exalted 8 band are just so fundamentally different that you can't use them as this like magical out all
Yeah.
rounder that is just going to solve all your problems. And the 8 ball durability Death Star of like your 8 band, your Demon Prince, 5 up Feel No Pains, 4 up Invulns, -1 to wound. It just doesn't work without a lot of that durability. So I think there's going to be a really big frame shift for Vessels players. Um, and actually, like obviously with a limited amount of time kind of thinking about this, I think that the people who really enjoy playing Vessels can splinter off in a bunch of different directions right now. Like you could keep it fairly simple and kind of sub out the exalted bricks for regular 8 band bricks and build something similar to the Brosy 2K. That would be completely fine. Of course, you can also start thinking about mass berserkers in vessels. Like I would say that not that it's super viable, but if you were the kind of person who wants to run 20 berserkers in a single squad, vessels is probably the place to do it because of the amount of things you can stack on top of them, such as triple blessings and extra AP and all that. And vessels does kind of help get around that strength deficit that Zerks are maybe suffering from now. Other than that, I think one of the biggest takeaways here is that most Vessels players recognized that at the highest competitive level, they needed some type of shooting support, and we were all turning to Brigands for that, which are expensive units. Now we have better choices in our own Codex for cheaper. You could look at the Forge Fiends. The Khorne Lord of Skulls is an excellent choice. If you're kind of feeling the Land Raider, it's an option as well. Um, it's very hard to say kind of a distinct archetype that's going to be really good for vessels, but I think it's not quite as MSU wide as Berserker Warband. I think it is moving towards a bit more of a debt bally castle just by nature of having the triple blessings up on three different units. And I think it does involve fire support as well. So I would say, in my opinion, there's definitely some really, really strong builds in there because Vessels does also have that durability that maybe the army lacks elsewhere. Um, I would probably put it either the top of mid table spicy or the bottom of competitive creme. And I think that's where it lands for me. Jamie,
Yeah,
how about
yeah.
you?
I mean, I pretty much agree. For me, as Vessels is one of the detachments I've really been trying to work on and see where those internal synergies are. What is it wanting and driving you towards, right? And with the ultimate change from the exalted 18 exalted and stuff like that that we were towards previously. I'm nowhere near getting what I think is a good list, like an honestly good list, but it is because the way I write lists is I write multiple dog shit lists, right? I just throw stuff in and then I try and think about it, and then I start pulling out stuff and adding stuff and slowly get somewhere that's not bad. So I mean, and this will be no surprise to anyone here. Like I of course tried 30 Terminators um because it never really worked before. Um I know some people have used it. Like I'm talking truly competitively. It never really worked. It's just stuck in my brain though with vessels because the exalted 8 bound durability bricks are just gone. Terminators are just a they're still 4 up involves, 2 up saves, T5, which is solid, right? They get a blessing for free now because they just got the +2 move baked in, which was one of the issues running them in vessels before. You still needed that movement of which was detracting from your lethality with them. Now you've got that. Depending on what else you do with them, they this is the one detachment I've looked at that makes Terminators okay. I don't hate it. Now, I'm not saying this is where it's going to end up, but that's the point. Because previously you had 3 big bricks of very tough, very killy, very fast things. We can't do that anymore, and you have to have the 3 bricks or something like that to truly utilize the vessel's special power. Where do we go? I think maybe definitely a 6 man regular 8 bound is does look spicy because I messed with that. I think it's not quite as powerful as it was, weirdly, from index to now. But I think it's also weirdly, and this is it's hard to get this out verbally. Overall, the power's worse, but I think individual units are more powerful. So if you can play a good game with it, you'll probably do better now than you would before. But your average player like me is probably going to do worse with it. I don't know how to verbalize that, but I definitely agree it's mid-table spice. Definitely on the upper where it's sitting right now. I have to see how we kind of drill down with the rest of them. But yeah, I'm happy with it in that position, and I think it's very good, basically. Brian, completely
Yeah.
disagree with both of us. Go on.
I don't actually disagree too much with you. I think my take on it is going to be similar, but a little different. Um, First of all, getting the addition of the slaughter bond is really actually hot in this detachment. Um, and from what I've seen from messing around with the blessings and just fooling around, it seems like the detachments that like the army wants to have three blessings going at any given point in time. Like you're gonna want your sustained hits, you're gonna want something else to boost your lethality, and you're gonna want the consolidates pile and consolidate six. Like the pile and consolidate six is such a fantastic glow up for us. I know we lost advance and charge, but getting that back. But not everything in your army wants to be piling and consolidating six. So
Yeah,
getting to choose three things that want it. Um, helps get rid of that inefficiency, which Vessels allows you to do. Also, some of the blessings are weirdly hard to get, like getting dev wounds is
everyone's yeah,
actually going to be quite rare because
yeah,
we used to have the consistency of re-rolling dice. Now we don't. Now we have to kill stuff to get our dice re-rolling. So it could be like turn three before you actually see dev wounds even come online. And I know that's like it's about the same as like naturally getting advance and charge before, which was like 45% chance without any rerolls. So it's going to be hard to actually get dev wounds and stuff, but vessels, if you want dev wounds in a specific scenario, you can actually pull that. Now, I don't think this detachment is going to be performing really well out the gate because unlike Berserker Warband, which is going to be pretty much a very similar, straightforward game plan. Vessels of Wrath, like Dara said, was blown wide open, right? There is not going to be a list for Vessels of Wrath for a very long time. I feel like there's going to be a lot of arguments and a lot of spice and a lot of building. I feel like this detachment probably has the most room for creativity. Um, so in that regard, I think we're actually going to see it age like wine. It's going to be like a slow cooker in the back where
Hmm.
a year from now somebody's finally gonna crack it and it's we're gonna have something really cool with it. But out the gate, yeah, I can't even start writing a list for vessels that I can just like fully wrap my head around with a solid game plan. All right. There's gonna be a lot of ups and downs, what fits where. Berserkers have play in there, 8-bound have play in there, Terminators have play in there. You're gonna want guns in there. Literally every data sheet we have
mm,
wants to fight for a spot in this detachment. So
Like the
there's
other
no
five detachments are very much telling you what you
what
should be
one?
building, but Vessels is just like, I don't know, man. What do you feel like?
Yeah, exactly. And it does a good job of that too, because it
Yeah.
doesn't feel bad for excluding things, which is a good design space to be. I
Hmm.
feel like it's probably one of the better designed attachments that we have. Um, so I think it's a slow cooker. I think it'll be a mid-table spice that will pop its head up randomly and just start being all over the place five,
Hmm.
6, 7 months after the Codex is finally out.
Yeah, sounds good. I think we're all in agreement there.
All right.
All right, we got Possessed Slaughterband up next. I can take the lead on this one because this is one of the detachments that I am sort of hard focusing on. It's probably my favorite detachment in the book. It's not, I don't think it's like the most powerful detachment in the book, but it's just the one that drew me. Um, this is kind of like if you want to play Custodes, but evil, basically. It is probably got the highest single damage ceiling in the entire codex. It is honestly pretty outrageous that they put a stratagem in this detachment, which allows an entire 8-bound unit to go up to 3 damage. That is like bizarre. And the fact that it's 1 CP is insane. And the fact that you can have a character who crits the entire unit on fives is a vibe. Like, this detachment is like, have you had problems killing things? You will no longer have problems killing things.
Do you hate stupid yellow banana warden man?
Yeah,
Introduce him to 30 damage, 3 saves.
Wardens just become mist in this. Like, so, okay, to give a broader overview on this, it's kind of confusing because the detachment rule actually wants you to build these really big 8-bound units to get the maximum efficiency from the blood surge. But when you're actually building the army list, as I've been doing, you sort of don't really want big 8-bound units because they're so hyper lethal in this detachment. You actually kind of want to operate as 3-mans a lot of the time, so you still retain your MSU efficiency. So broadly speaking, I think what I've found is it's actually building very like the Dabrowsi vessels list, where you've kind of got like 2 or 3 8-bound bricks. You've got some MSU 8-bound. You pretty much have to have a Demon Prince in this detachment just to get the most out of those 2 CP stratagems, which are expensive. Um, You have the durability in here as well, in the form of being able to make a 8 man unit -1 to be wounded in combat and shooting, and you have the auto fight on death. So it's quite similar to Vessels, but where Vessels has the flexibility of building into different ways, this actually has the answer to combat where Vessels doesn't, because you've got auto fight on death and you've got -1 to be wounded in combat. Um, it's a tough one to build this for, and it's going to be a brutally punishing army for misplays. The army is like the ultimate glass cannon. It will kill everything in the world, but it will die very, very quickly. So if you trade wrong, you're going to be in pain. And I love it for that reason. It's very, very good at making you a better comp player because you have to pick your fights absolutely correctly. Um, However, I do think that in terms of the ranking, it's definitely below Warband and it's definitely below Vessels. I would probably put it at the bottom of mid-table Spice, maybe even in the too cute category. Not that I think it's like bad, I just think it needs like the right kind of pilot who is number one good at the game and number two like already is playing that kind of passive aggressive play style and knows how to trade efficiently. So I would honestly put it in too cute, I think. But for
I'm
the record, I love it. It's like such a great
it
detachment.
it's cool. And having damage 3 8 bound is what we wanted because right back in what ninth edition you could get them with damage
Yeah.
4, right? Like it's just some absurd number. Um there is no kill like overkill. That is this detachment. So like as Dara was saying, the 6-man 8 bound squad, you're like, oh, I'm gonna make it damage 3, but you probably would have mulched anything already at damage 2. So actually cherry picking when you do your damage 3 is going to be incredibly important. And I can see this detachment being the one that gets punished for the success of the others. If we see Berserker Warband and Vessels start to pop off and 8 bound start to cop some 10 point, 5 point nerfs, Berserker Warband's going to be like, whatever, drop like, I don't know, a squad of spawn.
And
Meanwhile,
this
your
attachment just
your 8
dies.
bound
Yeah.
player's just like screaming in the corner, like my list just went up 100 points. Stop
Yeah.
winning, guys. And you're just trying to. It's going to live and die on the success of 8 bound and other detachments, I feel. Because if 8 bound are pointed into the floor and you're just allowed to walk up the board with 36 8 bound, you're going to kill everything you touch. But if you just get pointed into the dirt and you can't score, and now you have to start doing actions with squads of 8 bound, that's when the wheels start to fall off the bus real quick. So maybe you just take fixed and engage in storm, and you just run at your opponent as fast as you can. But there's
Maybe
going to be
you
some
take fixed.
maybe yeah, and that's where we start to see the problems, right?
Mm.
Um, no one can contest the fact that it's going to do a lot of damage. It's just I've been playing with Emperor's Children and Flawless Blades. Don't really put up much of a fight. They kind of die to a stiff breeze, and 8 bound are certainly no Custody when it comes to durability. We may hit harder than Custodes, but we definitely are less durable.
It's going to
Uh,
have some amazing games into like Custodes, Knights, things like that. But it's going to have a really tough time into like Eldar because you just don't have the efficiency.
well, you can get tabled
Um,
in a turn with this
yep.
list into some of the wrong armies out there.
Yep.
And if Noise Marines post up and start shooting at my 8 bound, I'm gonna start sweating bullets. So that's
Yeah,
my take is I think it's a little too cute. Maybe with some points, mid-table spice.
yeah. Well, one of the biggest issue I had with or have with this detachment is kind of you just basically said the same thing, Brian. All the other detachments kind of benefit either the whole army or want to benefit the whole army or multiple units, right? Or unit keywords, I guess is here. Pretty much everything is on two data sheets, so you really are forced into that. And that point you made about once 8 bound eat a 10 point nerf or something, this detachment dies. Like, and that's big. Like, I like the idea of having these themed attachments, but yeah, it just you give with one hand and you take with the other every time you try and balance something like that. So yeah, I mean, I'm probably not going to be playing this detachment anytime soon. It's not one I'm super interested in. I do agree, like the output of it, the damage ceiling is magnificent. But again, it's you can't you want the bigger squads for the for the blood surge part, but then you want the smaller squads because you've only got like so many points in an army to do a fucking game. So yeah, I think it's going to be incredibly hard to balance this right and get everything you need in there. So I 100% agree. At the moment, too cute. It's definitely not get some help, but I don't see it as spicy yet. Unless I'm missing something from what I've read of it so far.
Isn't it so me to like hyperfixate on what we think is like the worst attachment?
Yeah. Well, that's how Brian and I were talking. That's how we knew this was dog shit because you'd said you
Yeah, it's like
really.
what does Dara enjoy the most? That's going to be the worst one. Alrighty. So we got Cult of Blood up next. Brian, you wanna kick us off with this one? This is probably like one of the weirdest ones that we've got going on in here.
So I'm looking at you, Josie. Um, I think the Jackpack list, which is what this is going to be looking at, has a few really cool builds. I mean, the Lord of Skulls got a huge glow up coming into the book, and that's absolutely a unit that you want to be considering in this detachment. If you want kind of like a really, I know Dara's cooking up some really cool kit bash ideas for a blood shrine on top of a Lord of Skulls in place of its head with jackals hanging off with spears. And that's really going to be like it's going to be Demon Princes and Lord of Skulls as the focal point of the army, which is just a horde of 100 cultists around it. Um, we've seen iterations of that currently with Berserker Warband. Josie's had a lot of success with Demon Princes giving out the 4-up, 5-up invulns, which has taken copious amounts of nerfs throughout the past couple years for no reason. But that durability kind of still exists, but not really. Not being able to, if you're going to play a horde stat check, you need to be able to get across the table. And with the changes to Lord Advocatus no longer being able to give scout to 20-man Jackal bricks, that's going to hurt it. Not having just a global 4-up invuln, just from hiding demon princes in random corners, is going to hurt it. And no one can deny that a million jackals with dev wounds is frightening, but you do have to get the jackals to the other side of the table, and they have a 7-up save now, and they have no feel no pain, so they will just drop life flies, right? Like there is nothing that is going to keep those jackals intact other than sheer numbers getting from one side of the table to the other. Now you can give one squad a 4-up and pay a CP to give another squad a 4-up, but that's not going to leave the. You're so slow that you're still going to have gaping holes in the rest of your army. So on a really dense table where you can walk up the board with 100 jackals and be pretty safe, I think it's going to be sweet. But I see this detachment suffering from mass shooting ranged on an open table or even mass melee. Like I feel like it hard loses to our other detachments just because you get across the board and you can pick these squads up like they're nothing. Now, as soon as 20 jackals charge you and get the dev wounds off and the sustains off, you're gonna melt, right? Like they're gonna drop 10 mortal wounds on you in addition to any other saves. But it's trying to be durable, but it's not doing a good enough job with the direction that our codex has gone. That is my current opinion.
You want me to voice something here, Darren?
Yeah, sure. Go for it, Jamie.
Yeah, I honestly, this is another detachment I've not put much thought in because Horde armies, it's just not something I'm gonna play. Yeah, what Brian said, 100% true. Um, I do think there is a place for it though. I think because yes, you like the breacher list, tower list right now, or pretty much anything which is competent at shooting in volume, um, will lift up most of your jackals in one turn, assuming they can get line of sight. So it's got hard counters, but there's going to be other armies which really have a problem. Because if you've got the Lord of Skulls, or you've got a couple of Forge Fiends, or what have you, then I've got to see a good list composed to really visualize this. Some armies cannot kill enough jackals in a turn, even with a 7-up save or a 6-up save in cover, or whatever. You're giving them the invul and stuff. It's not a consistent singles list until someone like Josie makes it work. But 100% I can see it working in teams. I'm not saying it will be the best teams list for World Eaters, but it just the problems it can create for some armies, depending on where other metalists come. Um, I would personally put it for me maybe at the high end of 2Q or the lower end of mid-table. Um, but that is genuinely based off of I couldn't play this. Mentally, I couldn't play it, and physically, I couldn't play it. So it's not something I'm devoting brain power to.
Yeah, fair. So I got saddled with this detachment, and I have had to hyper focus on it and try and work out how it builds. So I've had a little bit more time with it than the boys. And drilling into it, it is a complex detachment. I think like maybe kind of what the boys are alluding to, and where most people's minds immediately go is like, okay, 120 jackals and however many goremongers. I just really don't think that that's like the competitive build for this detachment at all. I think you definitely, if you're like building this detachment for a competitive environment, I think you certainly take like somewhere between 60 and 80 jackals as like your initial like meat grinder wave, and you probably throw them up with like a demon prince to just be casting off those buffs and everything. Um, so you're going to be using like the speed buffs to get into position, and then you're probably going to have a turn where you just ram like maybe a demon prince or two and 80 jackals or however many of them are left into your opponent's lines and gum them up for as long as possible. And then what you have is everything behind them. So like you start bringing in things like 8 bound, you start bringing in things like berserkers. Maybe if you've got a class in the list as well. I think the class definitely wants to be in this list because he's just very efficient. He does provide that anti-tank where the list kind of lacks it otherwise. But I think this definitely wants to set up as like a staggered wave detachment where you have this initial trash wave that literally just pretty much serve to gum up the entire board for as long as possible. And you obviously do have a 2 CP respawn an entire 20-man brick, which is very, very good. And you still have ways of making it durable. Like if you do manage to get like 60 jackals into your opponent's lines and you just pop off the 4-up invul, 20 of those jackals now have a 5-up feel no pain as well. Like they will be a massive pain in the ass to kill. We like I used to play the 4-up demon prince invul with 20 jackals, and like sometimes he would literally take an entire opponent's shooting phase just to kill the 20. So if you've got 60 of them on that kind of level with like I don't know 9 8 bound behind them, or with like 20 berserkers behind them, yeah, it's going to be a pressure list. I think it's still going to be very hard to make it work in a singles environment. I think it's going to run up into some extremely hard counters. You run into something like Chaos or Imperial Knights, you're going to have a really, really tough game on your hands. But then if you run into something like Custodes, you're probably laughing because it's like, oh, hello, Wardens. Allow me to introduce you to 20 jackals with devastating wounds. Have some fun. By the way, there's like 3 8 bound hiding in the building next to them, making them hit on threes, and they've got sus and lethal and dev. Okay, like, cool,
And
good talk.
probably re-rolls as well.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's a ton of ways of like the jackal damage dealing is very high in this attachment. They will kill infantry really, really well, and they might be able to threaten light vehicles. Um, but Brian and Jamie are correct that like getting them to where they want to be is going to be the hard part. I just think that like people who immediately think, okay, I'm going to put 120 jackals in and like however many gore mongers and a couple of demon princes in a class, like that's not going to be the build. The build is going to be a more balanced, nuanced approach to this, where you have a formidable second wave that can actually punch in. I do still think that like for the general kind of like community, it is probably falling into the 2Q detachment. I think it is behind the 8 bound. Just because I know some people will be able to skew it, like Josie will be able to do work with this, but for the vast majority of people, they won't because either they default into the 120 build or they just can't make it work because it's a little bit more cerebral and kind of tough to make it do the thing that it wants to do. It's basically Chaos Cult, but a little bit weaker. And like we all know how that's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually will argue for top of two cute because I love fighting over the last place. But I actually do see it having a place in teams versus
Okay.
8 bound. 8 bound, if you're talking about bringing 8 bound in teams, I'm going to say why not Berserker Warband most of the time.
No one cares
Uh,
about teams, Brian.
well,
Hey, I'm just happy I had a good take for once.
Don't worry, Jamie. The transport detachment's coming up next.
Oh yeah, yeah,
All right,
yeah.
bring us into this one.
Okay, the transport, gore trade, slaughter. bound pack of Doom Party Boss 420. So I really like this. No surprises there. I think it's definitely spice. Is we don't even your guys' opinions doesn't matter on this. It's spice. Just end the video there. I think it opens up vehicles for us so much. Yes, there's a lot of berserkers jumping out, transport rhinos, so on. I don't care about that. I care about just getting the motivation to potentially one day put my third Land Raider on the table, running three of them. Lord of Skulls loves this list, like absolutely loves this list. Forge Fiends love this list. Everyone loves this list when they have the vehicle keyword. So many nice little things you can do. Um, I do think it suffered like this isn't the right way to play it, guys, by the way. This is just what goes through my head. I think Hellbrutes in this list are phenomenal. Um, it solves a lot of issues we've had army-wise with vehicles. They've always like it's like, oh, we've got to take a Forge Fiend or a Brigand or whatever because we have to, right? We needed something that would clear the chaff or deal with BR anti-tank or whatever we needed. This one is happy to run not as a shooting army, but as a very dedicated fire support list. You will probably once the better versions of the list shake out, you'll be running a couple rhinos or land raiders, depending. You'll have some berserkers in there, and you're just going to have this secure mobile armor sort of tank division driving down the table with good fire support. Everything can go where it needs to go. Um, this is one of those detachments to me, which if you're treating it seriously, the list will kind of write itself. Um, because everything is on the heavier end of points as well. You're going to have to consider things like making sure you don't run a parking lot. You're going to have to consider how your strat reserves and deep strike is going to function in most lists, depending on what terrain setups you play on and things like that. So I don't think there'll be a lot of variation in early lists for this. I think it does have enough jank available. Sorry, if there's really annoying background noise right now, I apologize. Someone's like hitting a wall or something. Um, I think I kind of know some comments Brian's going to make, so I won't like steal them from him and pretend that was my big brain commentary. Um, there are a lot of ways this can go, and it just to me it offers it's the opposite of the eight bound detachment, which the eight bound detachment you're very locked into some very specific units. Here, all the synergy in it, you can go into at least two directions. You can go into a bunch of berserkers and rhinos, or you can go into a gun list. You can do combined arms with both. I think it's got everything you need to make a more almost like 30k style World Eaters list. The sort of classic Legion mentality, fire support, berserkers jumping out and rip and tearing. Um, I don't. I personally put it above vessels, but I think realistically, being fair, it's in the mid of or at the back of mid-table spice, maybe in the middle. Um, yeah, that. Those are my thoughts and feelings on it. Who wants to go next? Fire.
Well, you already keyed me in. So, getting Lance and +1 to charge, I believe, right? Out of disembarking from a Rhino is actually pretty solid. Um, that allows it to compete with. And previously, we were talking about how Vessels was always trying to catch up to Berserker Warband during the index time in terms of lethality from losing the +1 strength, +1 attack. Well, gaining Lance on the charge is a very good step in the right direction for getting that lethality back. You're going to miss your +1 attack, but broadly, Lance is better than +2 strength, albeit comparable. There's a few awkward stat lines where it is better. For example, Berserker's coming out strength 4, attacking something like a Great Unclean One. You're going to be wounding on fives versus in Berserker Warband, no matter what, you're wounding on sixes. So there are situations where it is better, but broadly it's similar enough that I don't think it's a detriment, right? Like definitely has its own upsides. Um, as far as the strats are concerned and kind of the jank that we've gained, like this is the jankiest detachment in terms of what it's trying to do. This is Mo's new home. Mo lost fights first, but Mo gets it back in this detachment. And it has to be a Mo because it's the only thing he can put in a vehicle that can hold an enhancer right now. Um, unless they messed up keywords and we can start shoving like we can do Imperial Agent stuff and start stacking rhinos inside of rhinos. And we put Lord and Juggernaut
Slaughter,
inside of rhinos. But um,
Slaughterbound can go in a Land Raider.
oh, true. Yes, true. But the jank's going to
Yeah,
come from where I'm getting at is the reactive disembark from a rhino, right? Land Raider doesn't get that, but you can reactive disembark and fights first with a heroic intervention, right? Somebody shoots your rhino and doesn't kill it, you can get out and essentially blood surge D6 plus 5 because you get to disembark 3, then D6 plus 2 with berserkers. And if you have a Mo, it's re-rolling, and the Mo has fights first. It's actually really, really, really cute and really, really, really good. Um, my issue with that, and the same thing with like the reactive move, if you get shot, you can reactive move with any vehicle or go through walls. My issue with a lot of this is that it's very reliant on your opponent getting gotcha'd, right? Like very oopsie, I forgot I could shoot a bolt pistol at you. So do you mind if I take that back and not shoot a pistol at you and you don't blood surge into me? Great, thanks. Okay, by the way, now I'm actually just going to put 5 fire dragons into your rhino and you're just dead anyways, right? That's a scenario I see happening a lot where either you're not going to be using these strats at all from people just not targeting you, which is in itself a good thing, right? Like
yeah,
it's the same thing as like the Blood Surge 8 and the Berserker Warband attachment. Like you're immune to chip, right? Like they're not going to just shoot a bolt pistol at a rhino because they can. Like that just isn't happening anymore.
yeah,
Now it's going to get replaced with I need to blow this rhino the hell up. And if I do, you lose your detachment rule too, and probably access to about half of your strats. So similar to like Dark Eldar with the Sky Splinter. It's that. It's that issue. It's how we coach everybody to deal with Dark Eldar is you go for their transports first, and then their game plan falls apart. And I can see that if you're specifically leaning into the Rhino Berserker rush, the wheels can fall off real quick because you're gonna think that you're gonna have all these really good strats behind you, and they are really good if your opponent plays into them. Now, what Jamie was talking about, which is leaning into the Land Raiders a little bit more, they got me a little excited because that actually makes sense. What are you going to do? Not shoot my Land Raider? Okay. Like 5 fire dragons could just completely whiff into a Land Raider. It'll probably still hurt it, but you're still going to be able to get out Blood Surge. Um, I think that version is probably going to end up being weirdly more successful than the Berserker Rhino Rush. Because also the Land Raiders are really hot right now. I think they are priced to move, and all those last cannon shots is going to be sick. Um, I just think as soon as you play into a player that understands what you're trying to do, suddenly your strats don't seem so good. And that's my concern with it. I still think it is mid-table spice because I do think this is going to be tearing up your 3-2, 4-1 bracket. It probably will win a GT at some point because somebody's going to crack it somehow. And like I said, putting your opponent in those awkward positions of I'm on this objective with a rhino. I'm going to react with disembark if you come up to it. Or if you shoot it, I'm just going to come out and murder you. And not that many things are going to be able to pick the corner. So like there are really good traps and positions that you can do with this, but I just see it trying to catch up to Berserker Warband with jank, and jank is usually just not a good place to be competitively if you're trying to win an event.
Yeah, I think once again, I kind of maybe fall between the both of you guys. Like to me, this detachment real reads as like a very similar to eighth and ninth edition playstyle for world leaders. Like it just kind of is, but with more jank and tricks and bonuses. So it's like you're gonna feel like you're playing ninth edition, but with better rules, basically. Um, I don't really like agree with Brian that like once someone works out the jank that it just kind of falls apart because you much like we currently do, you still use the jank to kind of dictate positioning and control points. Like you can say like, yes, I know you're aware of my blood surge. However, I'm going to move in such a way that like you now have to deal with the fact that yes, you know I can surge, but I'm in a really annoying position if you don't do anything about it. Obviously, this attachment has a ton of that between like taking advantage of the Rhino's reactive disembark and then all the other weird shit you can do with it. I do kind of agree with both the boys that like, yeah, it's like if you go like 100% transports, it's just like whatever, man, you know. But if you start incorporating things like Hellbrutes, it gets a bit freaky because you can have like Hellbrutes with like, oh yeah, you shot me, I live, I shoot you back, then I scuttle away behind a wall like some weird crab, or like the Defiler is genuinely like freaky as hell in this detachment. Because like what are you supposed to do if the Defiler is like the fulcrum point around your Land Raiders and Rhinos? Like, you can't get those fire dragons out of the Falcon and Melter range because they'll get pounded by the Defiler. Like, what are you supposed to do about this? And God forbid you get out too close and it just charges you. I think there's like a lot of really interesting and weird kind of like old school retro lists that can come out of this one. It's very powerful in my opinion. I think it's more powerful than Vessels. And I think in the initial like month or 2 months before number one, people learn how to play around it, and number two, any nerfs come in. Um, I could definitely see this detachment winning GTs. I think it won't win as many as Berserker Warband, but it's definitely going to win more than all the rest of them, just because like the jank will make people cry. It's basically like Yannari World Eaters. It's a ton of like I do stuff in your turn, you can't really do much about it, and now you have to cry. So I would actually put this like behind Berserker Warband in competitive creme, at least for now.
I'm inclined. I was going to put it at top of mid-table spice, but you can talk me down to back at competitive crim. So finally,
I don't want to talk about this one.
we have the goofiest bastard child of the World Leader Codex. This is the one that I was most excited for coming into the Codex. Carnival and Emperor's Children was actually, in my opinion, done pretty well. It inspired good synergy between your mortals and your demons. You want to keep them close to each other, so they're buffing each other up. Now, we all thought that that was going to kind of be what was going to be the vibe of it now, but it really kind of isn't. But it's still encouraging you to lean heavily, I mean heavily into the demons, right? Like a common problem that I'm having when bringing up Brain Childs for this army is that I'm running out of points for all the Khorne demons I want to slam in this detachment. Um, Being able to attach the Juggernaut Lord to the six Blood Crushers, that is a dream that we've always had. I know we didn't get our Berserker Cav this edition, maybe next edition, but for now, we at least get to roleplay and LARP being Berserker Cav with Blood Crushers. And having the impact mortal wounds from the Blood Crushers is insane. Still 7 dice getting thrown at your opponent's face. Being able to add blessings to that too, giving them dev wounds, sustained hits. They actually hit significantly harder than they do in demons, which they're already one of the best units in the demon index, and now we have access to them, and they're even better. Uh, the Blood Tithe returning is a little weird. There's some things I don't like about it, but broadly, it's good. Uh, Getting Blood Tithe at first you would think would be hard until you start reading some of the enhancements and strats that we have access to, like the +1 strength attack and damage enhancement that also gives you a Blood Tithe point when you just kill something. It's fantastic, right? Blood Tithe generation, you're really going to be looking at unlocking that Lance first, which is not the most expensive Blood Tithe buff. The Feel No Pain's cute if you run into a Grey Knight player and you just kind of want to give them the finger. You can do that pretty cheap and easy. Um, but you're really going to want to be chasing that Lance buff, which will unlock some of the other strats. Like if you already have Lance, you get Twin Linked. Um, and making a Bloodletter squad, which is probably going to get priced around like 90 to 100 points. We don't know yet, but that 90 to 100 point, whatever they settle on, is going to, because I mean, the Legions of Access and the Emperor's Children, all of their stuff's a little bit cheaper. So I'm assuming our demons are also going to be a little bit cheaper within our codex. You're gonna have a Bloodletter squad that could be just sitting there staring at you with like dev wound, sustained hits, re-rolling lance, +1 to hit, like from a Bloodthirster, and just start stacking buffs to the ceiling. And I haven't even gotten to like the jankiest part of the detachment, which is that we have Incarn Bloodletters. And trying to wrap your head around the potential of what this is capable of is just stupid, right? Like the first thing that comes to your head is Forge Fiend, shoot dude die, spawn Bloodletters charge, right? No, no, and we're not even talking about that. We're talking about like you put spawn on an objective and the spawn die, and you're like, well, I don't have sticky in death in this detachment, but what if I just kind of did anyways? And there's just a bunch of goblins on it now, right? Your opponent has to be playing around the fact that bloodletters can literally crawl out of holes in the ground anywhere on the table. Anywhere there is currently a model on the table, there could also be 10 bloodletters. And that's the entire game that your opponent has to play. And that strat may not be incredibly powerful, but just the mind fuckery that that's going to do to your opponent of, oh God, this Forge Fiend can turn my scouts into 10 bloodletters, which will then charge me, right? Or, I mean, Dara brought up a good point earlier today that I was even thinking about. So I'll just stop talking about this detachment. I think it's actually got a lot of really cool combos similar to Vessels. I think it's going to take a long time before the list is found. Um, and its jank, which it does have jank, isn't as direct. Like your opponent has to constantly be playing around its jank. I definitely think it has a position in the meta to be a weird counter list to something like Eldar, where you blow a squad of Aspect Warriors up. Now you have 10 Bloodletters. It'll go pick up two more squads in a double charge. That seems sick. So I think it is in mid-table spice. I think its tools are not as transparent as stuff like Vessels, which is already not a very transparent army. So I do think it is going to be a hard army to crack. I do think it is still going to be putting up 3 2s and 4 1s. And I think maybe if I get my hands on it and crack it, I hopefully can drive that to a 5-0 win because I really love Demonkin. That was what I wanted to get into when I started playing World Eaters, and I'm glad to see it back. And also, Monkey's Paw curled and gave us Blood Tithe back, but like not really, but still kind of there. And it's still cool. So I'm excited to play it and get my hands on it. I think it is probably bottom of mid-table spice.
I'll agree. For me, this detachment is very much a lot of admin. You need giant brain to handle this. I think this will be a great one for current demon players to just walk straight into the faction and pick up. Just the you just got to be remembering at the end of the fight phase you're uppy downy and your dogs are uppy downy and like you've where are you planning to kill something to bring in your bloodletters to destabilize their lines? Where are they pinning the enemy to allow you to bring your bloodthirster up a bit safer? If you can, 4D, hell, you're going to be 5D chessing this. Yes, you're if you can handle that, I don't know that it necessarily has a bad matchup because it's just got a little response to everything. And yeah, it's Eldar World Eaters or Ynnari World Eaters, however you want to look at it. It's just a whole bunch of bullshit, shit just appearing all over the board, ready to kill you. It's a lot better than I expected it to be. I was thinking this was going to be like some crummy default bullshit. You've got like a really shit rule, and yeah, just have some demons, whatever. No one cares. I really appreciate what they've done with this. What I see, how I see this looking on the table, is pretty badass. I like it a lot. I don't think I could handle it well. I definitely want to try. I just don't think I can mentally deal with remembering everything. Like I would have to have a step-by-step guide of how to do every turn. But yeah, I agree. What did you say? You said mid-table spice.
I would
Um,
argue above or beneath Vessels, but I'm not really convinced where it is. I'll let
I,
Dara be the deciding factor on that
yeah,
one.
I'm. It's definitely strong. It's not as strong as Berserker Warband in that I think you need to be a far more experienced player to jump in and get to your 3 and 2 with this. I think like someone like me, I'll 3 and 2 with Berserker Warband more or less regardless of the meta, as a minimum. I mean, this one, I don't know that I could. Like, Berserker Warband gives a player of my sort of like intermediate advanced level 4 and 1 access pretty easily. Demons, or the Blood Legion, whatever we call it, Demonkin holds you back unless you've got the skill in which you can do as well as Berserker Warband. So, yeah, I'm definitely okay with mid-table spice right there, kind of in the middle. Dara, tear it
I
down, man.
I think if you gave me the choice, I would rather paint three Helldrakes to heavy metal golden demon level standard than play this attachment.
Damn.
I think like so obviously it's very fucking powerful. Like there's a stupid amount of jank as Brian and Jamie have alluded to. I recognize the hilarity of the spawning bloodletters. I mean, me and Jamie talked on call for like, I don't know, it was like an hour and a half of just different scenarios where this weird stratagem could come up. It's probably the most hilarious and stupidest stratagem in the entire game, and it's not going to be in its current form for very long, I don't think, because it is just too stupid. That aside, it's like very much like, oh yeah, every time that we said we wanted the blood tide back, and then the monkey's paw just like curled around our nether regions, and this is what we get. This it like salts a wound for me because I love the blood tithe and I hate this rendition of it. I understand again, it is very good, but I'm just like, wow, that sucks. Especially seeing that the Emperor's Children got such a sick version of the blood tithe. I'm like, I wanted that, and this is what we got. I don't like have like a big love for like demons. So like, I mean, like I have a Khorne demon army. They're cool. I just like don't really care that much about them anymore. Um, Yeah, like it's super powerful. It's got a ton of jank. It can do a lot of stuff. Can do a ton of damage, as we've
What,
alluded to.
what
But
about Karn? What about Karn?
yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, Karen can like die and you can spawn 10 bloodletters out of his ass and then he can come back to life and they can like, I don't know, kiss in a corner or something. I don't care that you can do all of these things. Like, yes, you can tank shock something to death in the charge phase, spawn 10 bloodletters, and then have them go off and charge. There's a ton of things you can do. And there's going to be a lot of hilarious stories. And I don't want to bring anyone down on that. I just think that, like, for me, this is kind of like when this is like asking Jamie to run the Jackal detachment. There's like so much admin in this detachment that I'm just like, oh my God, how many
I
fiery hoops am I having to jump through here to like make things happen?
I love it.
I think like it is cool. Okay, it's well written and there's a lot of like really funny stuff in here. I just know that this is like probably as far away from like my personal playstyle as anything could be. Um, well, like I can definitely see someone like you, Brian, just like cackling like a madman while you just do stupid shit on the table on a like I don't know, tabletop
I'm
live
gonna
stream or something.
pull out the boombox and play clown music the whole time.
Yeah, like it's hilarious. You can do some really fun stuff. I love that like you can have a Juglord attached to Crushers or Fleshhounds. Like that's awesome. I love lots of like interesting things about this faction. It is pretty cool. And I do agree that it is like mid-table spice for sure. It's just like it's really not for me. And I'm so glad that I did not have to focus on it for the channel. But like we're definitely going to see some really funny stuff with that, and I do hope the Bloodletter stratagem stays for quite a while because it's brilliant, it's so funny. But yeah, I think like there we have it, I guess, with the tier list. Everything is stacked up quite nicely. Do we? I don't disagree with this layout. Like you boys generally good with this?
Yeah. And
I think
and
so. I think this is going to be a good one to revisit
Mm.
in a couple of months, depending on data slate changes, any FAQs that drop or anything like that. Um, but yeah, it's going to be nice. Sort of like, let's say, I think we do, unless anything major breaks in the next few months. I'd say end of the summer, kind of like August, September time, we need to revisit and redo this and see, compare where we stand, right?
Yeah, I mean, like this is very much like our initial impressions without really having reps in or anything, or like getting other people's thoughts or like ideas. This is just the three of us like spitballing about and being like, "Oh, you could do this thing." Like if we made this
Basically,
video,
just read the Codex sort of thing.
yeah,
it's
like
it's more of a prediction of like what order we think these fact or these detachments are going to pop off, and probably
Yeah,
the order that will be winning events in, like just
yeah,
yeah,
out
and
of the
yeah,
gate.
popularity
yeah.
as well, because like obviously there is the whole thing of like, yeah, sure, like I love the 8 pound attachment. I'm gonna try and win a tournament with it. Do I expect everyone else to do that? No. Like this is more of a generalist kind of thing. While we obviously have integrated our own opinions into it, like we are trying to think, okay, what does the majority of people want, and like how are they going to do with this?
And
And
I
I
will say,
just don't really disagree with like where everything is positioned in that context.
and I am broadly thankful. I mean, we put it on here to get some help category, which a lot of codexes that have come out this edition have many
Most
many
everyone.
detachments that are in get some help.
Mm.
Um,
Some codexes have like only one detachment that's viable and everything else
Yeah.
is in gets them. Now, I would agree with Brian if 8-bound like suddenly do well in other detachments and then like receive a hefty hit. I do think the possessed Slaughterman could fall in to get some help because like there is a point where that detachment just becomes too expensive to play.
Yeah.
Like that is just
You
the truth
have
of
to
it.
be able to play the game and kill your opponent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I was saying, I think I'm thankful that we were blessed with a codex that has six very unique ways to play it. No detachment is really going to look the same. I mean, the most same you could get would be Berserker Warband and the Transport Detachment if you're just doing Berserker Spam and Rhinos. But even then, they're going to play differently on the table. Um, I feel like every single detachment has a place on the table.
Mm.
Can be played, and they're all filled with tons of flavor. I Emperor's Children was just like that out the gate. All of the detachments are great and full of flavor. Um, I'm thankful that we actually have a very flavorful World Leader Codex, and there isn't just like, oh boy, the Dark Angels Codex came out, and then like the Dark Angels players just took it and threw it over their shoulder and kept playing Gladius instead. I'm glad that didn't happen to us, um, because I feel like Berserker Warband to me is probably the clear winner. I know to some of you guys may disagree, but I don't feel like it's incorrect to be playing other detachments, right? Like other detachments have play, have places in the meta, have places in teams, and that's really cool to see.
I'm not going to tell someone they're crazy because they're running any of these attachments here. I think like literally anyone could come to me and say, I want to run this detachment and maybe try and win a GT. And I'm like, yeah, you could probably do that.
Yep. Yep. I think there's definitely play for each of them, and it's testament to a very well written codex, internally balanced for the most part. Um, we'll see how it shakes out in the meta, where particular warbands rise and others fall. But I think we can wrap this one up, having successfulully done our job, and we can now quit 40K, right, fellas?
Thank God.
At last.
Yeah, I think obviously to close this one out and maybe I suppose give a hint of what's coming up. So we have individual detachment videos coming out for all of these where we're going to talk about list archetypes, example lists, what's good, what's bad. So if you are particularly interested in specific detachments, stay tuned for those. You may have already guessed which ones that we're going to be taking individually. But hey, let us know down below what is your favorite detachment, or if you disagree with any of our thoughts here. To close it out, as always, if you want to support the channel, like, comment, and subscribe. It helps us a ton. Join our Discord, most important thing you can do. Lots of great stuff going on in there. And if you want to support us financially, help us keep going, then you can sub to our Patreon, where we can give you either competitive or hobby-based advice. But I think for now, lots of content coming up, lots of content already out. Boys, anything you want to say before we close this out?
Bring me
Yeah.
skulls.
Bring us skulls. First person
I'll
to win a
say,
tournament will like probably guaranteed place on Skull Takers
yeah,
as well.
that is
So.
true. Yeah.
Alrighty, that's enough for now from us on the Red Pad. Until the next one, folks, you stay healthy, stay safe, and kill, maim, burn.